Yo, long time no video. So about 2 months ago, we packed up and left South Africa. But before we did, I wanted to do one last big canvas painting. So this video is going to be all about that. All right. How's it? It's Ryan here. So as I mentioned, a couple of months ago, we sold all of our stuff, packed up and left South Africa. It was something that we'd been planning for quite a while. But at last, we're in Timelapse, Georgia, which is where we wanted to be. It's awesome here, really enjoying it. Managed to catch a little bit of the end of winter and getting to see the city under snow, which for me as a coastal South African boy, it was quite exciting to see. So in the build up to all of this, we were selling off all of our stuff. I had a lot of excess art supplies, a lot of which got donated. I had a few big canvases left over as well, and I thought it'd be cool to just do one last big actual painting in my home studio before I let that go, knowing it was going to be quite a while before I'd have a space like that again to really just throw paint around and make a mess. I knew with this that the idea would have to be simple because I didn't have very much time left. So I knew I wanted to do a portrait, female face with a crow in it somehow. I had a lot of excess black paint and a lot of blue paint, so that was going to dictate the color scheme. Those were going to be the dominant colors, and then I'd bring in some warms as well. So that's as much as there was to the piece. No heavy conceptual meaning or anything behind it. I just wanted to have some fun, use some excess materials, and make an image that hopefully looks cool. So let's dive in. The first thing for me, any idea, whether it's a canvas painting, whether it's a mural or a digital painting, it'll usually start out with pencil in sketchbook. And this stage is really quite loose, tends to be quite small sketches as well. I'm trying to do more thumbnailing, just trying to figure out different compositional arrangements, different shapes and silhouettes and stuff to use, rather than just going with the first idea that pops into my head. Usually that's not the best one to go with. So I am just trying to spend a bit more time playing with the idea first before I start refining things. From here, I move over onto the iPad usually and do a slightly more detailed sketch. And I can also play around easily here with different color schemes. Obviously for this, I had something figured out already, but in general, I'd be able to play with that much more easily and much quicker as well, digitally rather than on paper. Once the sketch is fairly refined, I know what I want to put down on the canvas, I actually need to get that idea over onto the canvas itself. Now, there are a couple of ways that a person can do this. One is with a projector, either digital or overhead. I have neither, so I'm instead going to use a method that a lot of mural artists will use for their work, trying to transfer their ideas from a page onto a huge wall, and that is by using a doodle grid. You could use a straightforward block grid method as well, but the doodle grid is quite fun. So the way to do this after you've prepped your canvas is to just do a bunch of doodles, fill up the canvas with random little drawings, skulls, numbers, letters, words. Then you're going to snap a photo of that and superimpose your idea sketch onto the photo of the canvas. Make sure it all fits. So what you're looking for here is the intersection between the lines of your idea sketch and the lines of your doodle grid. And those are going to be your points of reference when you actually start drawing onto the canvas itself. Just really helps to speed up the process rather than just trying to immediately recreate the drawing onto the canvas and work from there. For some people, that's quite an easy thing to do. For me, it takes me quite a while. So a method like the doodle grid really helps to just cut down that time. So let's jump into the painting. I usually start by just blocking in flat colors, get the main shapes down, the main sort of silhouette down, and then get stuck into the real painting, so to speak, from there. I got off to a bit of a bumpy start here. I really struggled with the face and working on this size with this medium again. But let's roll the time lapse and then I'll chat to you about a phase that I think a lot of artists tend to hit with just about every piece that they do, especially if they have quite a specific idea in mind that they're trying to express. Okay, so at this point I'm starting to really feel the struggle with this piece, and I'm not quite sure how I'm going to get it from where it is now to the final sort of idea that I've envisioned for it. And I think a lot of people will experience this in their piece, where they really start to, hate's quite a strong word, but you really start to struggle with what you're doing, and sometimes even have those feelings of, just wanting to paint over it and start again, because you can't seem to get it right, and it's just not looking the way you want it to be looking. But I think every piece goes through that, and it's important to separate a bit the criticism of the piece and yourself. And sometimes that's a bit more easily said than done. I know for myself, for example, I sometimes beat myself up a little bit, thinking, I studied fine art, I studied drawing, like I spent a few years learning these skills, but why am I struggling with this piece so much? I shouldn't be at this point. Yet here we are. But I think that's totally normal. You just have to kind of kick that voice out of the room and look at just the piece in front of you and how things aren't working. So what I like to do at this point, and it usually comes at the end of the day after I've been slaving away at the piece, is take a proper step back, grab my chair, walk to the other side of the studio, sit down and stare at this piece from a good distance. And I'll spend some time with this and start looking at each area that's bugging me and try and figure out why it's not working. I might have a notebook with me and just jot down some notes. Maybe the angle of the jaw is not right, or the nose is too squished, or the eye is sitting a little too high on one side, or just things like that. And then have a list of notes for myself to then work through the next day. But what I'll do when I'm working with acrylic paints, because it dries so fast, is to go up to the painting with a piece of chalk and start drawing over it and making notes for myself directly on the canvas. And the idea for this, especially doing it at the end of the day, is that I resolve some of the issues in my mind before I go to sleep and before I come back to the studio the next morning, so that I have a clear path when I come back to the studio. I've got all these notes down already. I can come in and just go for it. I don't have to spend time thinking about it or looking at it feeling like, oh damn, how am I going to get this right? I already know what I have to do. And that is, I think, a good way to start the day going into a piece. Because then you can start ticking off items on that sort of painting to-do list, right? And it helps you keep momentum through the day. With all that said, let's dive into the next phase, and I'll chat to you at the end. So that's the piece. It got sealed and handed over to friends of mine who have a framing studio. It was handed over on the last day before we flew out. And yeah, I had quite a bit of fun doing this piece. I was quite happy with how it turned out, given the amount of time that I had and where my skills were at. But I could definitely see areas where I could improve. And I think that is a good outcome. It's okay to not be fully happy with your work. I very seldom am. I know that's the case for a lot of artists. But I think that's okay if you can see those areas where you could be stepping up your game, where you could spend more time problem solving or just doing studies, that you can do these pieces better on your next painting. But let me know what you think, and yeah, tell me in the comments below what kind of things you guys struggle with when you're working through a painting. I'd dig to hear from you. With the next set of videos that I'm doing, they're going to be much shorter videos. I'm going to be doing sort of timed animal portrait studies, and I'm going to be focused a bit more on trying out different techniques, trying to speed up my process, and really just learning and leveling up my digital art skills. So I hope you'll join me for that. If you want to know when they come out, you know where the subscribe button is. But until then, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you being here. Ciao for now.